No wacky intro needed, it's Donington Park 2026.
Hello and welcome back to the British Touring Car Podcast. The 2026 season is here.
It is.
First race weekend, Donington Park National, that is.
It is.
And we are going. We're going to bring you everything that you kind of need to know going into the weekend, bring you our predictions as well. If you are new and you haven't subscribed yet, do go and subscribe down below, get the bell on, everything like that. But how are you, Russ?
I'm well. I was going to say as well, if you're old and haven't subscribed, what's your excuse? Come on, sort it out. But yes, I am well. Yes, very excited that we are fully into race week, and the dawn of the 2026 season is upon us. Lots to come. I've got a feeling I know which way it's going to go, but the great thing about this sport is that if you've watched us over the years, when we get to our predictions, we don't score particularly highly because the sport is so difficult to call in the main, which is going to be, and of course we have for the first time this weekend the new qualifying format, which for political reasons we're both very excited about, and we will give a fair chance before absolutely slating on the review pod come next week. Well, for those who are new, we do a review pod. This week's review pod, just to put the warning out there, won't be as good as the usual work because some moron decided to book a holiday the week after. So selfish. We will try. We've got workarounds in place. There will be a review pod, but if you're our first time listener, I promise you that the Brands Hatch review will be a lot better and a lot more comprehensive than next week's will be. So that's the negatives out the way.
And if you haven't done already, we have done our season preview this week, so you can see all the runners and riders, the teams that they're in and the cars that they will be driving. So bring yourself up to date with that if you haven't already, and we'll talk about their prospects for the weekend ahead.
And of course, on that note, we have of course done our season predictions as well. A slight change in the format this year. We've done them early and we've documented them from the start, so you can laugh at us as the season progresses to how far off we were on those. But if you want to have a little bit of hot takes, that is the next video for you to watch if you haven't already. With all that pre-admin out of the way, shall we go to Donington Park? Yes. We are... We'll do what you usually do, which is the quiz that shows whether you've done your research or not. Hint, we all know the answer. So Donington Park then, 10 corners, debuted in 1977 for the British Touring Cars and just under 2 miles at 1.98. As you've alluded to, it is the national circuit, so it hasn't got the little Starkey's hairpin plugged on. We go there later in the year. Would you like to hazard a guess, without Googling, who has the qualifying fastest lap at this circuit?
Now, I'm intimating to last season, we saw a lot of quick time set last season throughout the year, so I'm going to go for last year.
Okay.
And I'm going to go for Tom Ingram because that car was stellar quick.
It was. Your logic is impeccably but wrong, I'm afraid, because it was Ash Sutton in 2023, so 2 years ago, and he set a 1:07.5. Would you like to guess the fastest lap in the race trim?
I'll go for Ash Sutton then.
That is better. Yes.
2023 again.
No, you'd be right with your first bit of logic. Okay. It was 2025. That was a 1:81. Yes, Ingram's car was very quick last year, but viewers might remember at the summer break, we had called Sutton to win the championship. That car had a much stronger start to the year and faded away as the season went on. So in terms of 2025, Dan Camish took pole in the Ford Focus. It was the hatchback.
Very promising for him at that stage, didn't it?
It did, but race 1 didn't go his way. The top 3 finishing being Sutton, Ingram and Rowbottom. Race 2, the brand new tyre rules, which meant we can get repeat winners or repeat podiums, saw Sutton, Ingram and Camish on the podium. And then race 3, where the reverse grid comes into place, so we don't see repeat people on the podium, saw Chilton, Ingram and Sutton. So, those two set the standard early. But the Ford is and has always been quick round here.
It has. And I'm kind of expecting it to be quite competitive this weekend, although they've got a little bit more learning to do. Obviously, they've changed their shape this year, basically, and gone for more of a saloon rather than a hatchback that they ran last year. Hopefully, it's going to be a bit more slippery in a straight line. And with that long back straight at Donington, we could see some more overtaking opportunities coming down into the final chicane.
Yeah, it'd be cool in some ways, or they're completely legal, if they could pick what circuits to be a hatchback at and what circuits to be a saloon at, because they might have wanted to keep the hatchback here because they were quick here last season. In terms of the independents last year, Mikey Doble took overall victory and Dexter Patterson took overall Jack Sear. So both of those will be aiming to repeat the feats this weekend, as they are both eligible in those championships.
And teammates this year in a brand new Audi that we will see for the first time in race trim this weekend.
We will. And that brings me to my first sort of question, really, is that I think for the first time in a long time, this really is a season of unknowns. And insofar as we have 3 new chassis to the grid, we've got big moves for various drivers. We've got rookies and good teams. We've got a car that finished last season, well, let's be honest, completely unbeatable in the Hyundai, starting the season presumably on top, but we don't know. They didn't really impress in testing. Yes, the caveat being testing is only really as good as the drivers make it, and you can sandbag and you don't want to give away too much too early. But they certainly didn't blow me away during the testing period. And it will be interesting, therefore, to see whether teams with newer cars have caught up and caught on to the fact that the current regs seem to suit saloon cars best. Or whether they're going to just, pop it on 1-2 and wave into the sunset and say, yep, cheers, we'll have it now.
Yeah, well, there's only one hatchback on the grid for this year, and that is the Toyota. And we know their fortunes changed as they came towards the end of last season. We put in Toka engine in. So I'm expecting a much better start from them this season, and especially at Donington, because historically they've gone okay here. So I would expect them to do a little bit better than that with that Toka engine in there. But yeah, it does look like the saloon is the style to have this season. And I think we could see some really close fights between all teams throughout the grid, especially with 2 new cars coming in the form of the Mercedes and the Audi. Those two, I think, are going to be fighting between each other this weekend as to who's going to be the best of those new teams, or new cars, should I say. And then we've got a brand new team in Plato Racing. Obviously, we know the pedigree that comes with that name, but whether they can hit the ground running as well.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see. I think as well, there's a lot of drivers with a bit to prove this year, I think, as well, and they have all potentially got the equipment to do it. So I'm thinking straight away of Ricky Cards will presumably be aiming for a podium quickly, perhaps not this weekend, but I think, because obviously he was quite a late announcement, but I do think that will be something he'll be aiming for as the season progresses. Moffat in a new team with a car that looked quick during testing. But I think the big thing I'm looking forward to and I'm most interested in is seeing how BMW go, because slow start to 2025. They didn't really perform at Donington Park. We all wrote them off, and then they came back at Brands Hatch and won all 3 races, which, naturally. And of course, this year they are under the independent banner. They are, of course, in a saloon. They have been in that 3 series for a while now. It'll be interesting to see with the new regulations and stuff like that and how they can get their balance, because last year they seemed to struggle for balance, what with having the hybrid system taken out.
Yep.
We know from looking under the bonnet as you walk through the pit lane that the engine is in a slightly different position to others, perfectly legally, before anybody starts getting funny about it. But there's a little bit more bumper, or a little more space, shall we say, between the front bumper and where the engine is mounted, certainly to the naked eye. So it'll be interesting to see whether they've got things right in the off-season. Obviously, during testing, they seem to have found some pace at times, but it's going to be a question to whether they can unlock that for the season.
Yeah, our sources have told us that they were struggling possibly with a little bit of heat issues last season, and they weren't getting the most amount of performance out of the engine that they possibly could. It looks like they may have refined that going into this season, especially with topping the times at Croft and also at Brands.
It was Brands. Yeah, my bad.
We went to Brands.
We went to Brands, yeah, we did, yeah.
And yeah, we both got burnt, remember that?
Yeah, and the camera delayed all the photos. Happy days, yeah.
So yeah, it does look like they've made some improvements in the off-season, and they're going to be a young and hungry outfit with those 2 drivers that are there this season in Rainford and De Leon. They know the car well. They know what they can expect of the car and where they can push it as well. I think they could be little underdogs for the season.
Agreed.
That you're going to have to keep an eye out on. And especially when we get to Brands at the second round, we know that they go quickly, yeah. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think it's also important to just pick up on the point you made there. Last season, they were both new to the car. Obviously, one was brand new to the championship. One had only been in for a season and a bit.
Yep.
So, I'm not saying this is the breakout year, the do or die year, but I think that they are going to be in a lot stronger position as a team with the car, with everything around them this year. Even understanding, and Charles alluded to it in our interview from Media Day, that, and also on the limit, that you've got to get used to the Btcc paddock. People want to come up to you, have your photo taken, have your autograph, all that kind of stuff. You've got to get used to that as much as you have the driving. And I think that you've both got that year, they've both got those seasons behind them now to build on. So it'll be interesting to see how they can go. The other thing I wanted to quickly touch on before we go into predictions and layout of the weekend, etc., is Restart Racing. So, of course, they are effectively the only custom team on the grid insofar as that they have bought Hyundais off of Virtue. I think Virtue basically created the chassis and the shell, and Restart Racing do the rest. Kept Chris Smiley, who fell off a little bit towards the end of last season, a little bit disappointingly so. And of course, the new hotshot in James Dorlin, who competed half the season last year in the Toyota, is back this year for a real crack at Jack Sears Independence and overall championship. I think it's quite a big year for Restart Racing, and also for potentially as we move forward, whether we see more customer teams in the touring cars. How do you think on that?
I think they've got a couple of different avenues to concentrate on this season. Obviously, coming in as reigning independent drivers and independent teams champion, they've now got two big competitors coming into that championship that are really going to push them to the limit. Yeah, three even. So you've got to look at WSR now being independent and the two drivers that are there. You've got the Laser Tools side of Toyota that is now independent with two hugely experienced drivers that are going to push them to the real limit this season.
And PMR. Who are not a team to mess with you. They know what they're doing. And
they've expanded their outfit in the winter, obviously bringing that new Audi chassis to the grid as well.
Two really strong drivers in Moffat and Doble as well, with a prospect in Dex as well. So
yeah, we saw how Dorlin was able to perform almost above the level of where the Toyota was in the early season of last year, and we thought he was unlucky to miss out on the second half of the season. Obviously, now we know that was down to more sponsorship issues, and he didn't want to let the team down. He's going to be a really interesting fit in that team for me because he's young, he's hungry, he wants to impress, he wants to get the absolute most out of it and make the most of his time in touring cars while he can still be there. He's alluded to how difficult it is to get onto the grid. Whereas Chris Smiley, yes, okay, he's a decently experienced driver, but I think he needs to kick on that little bit more, start looking at taking more race wins, and not just race 3 wins, but overall well-earned race wins. That doesn't sound brilliant, but sort of like when you get a reverse grid pole and you can go off and you can control the race, it is much different to taking a race win in race 1 or race 2.
I would agree with that, although I would also say it's very difficult to take a race win when you have Sutton and Ingram on the grid who don't really share out many of them.
No, they certainly didn't last season.
But I do take your point. I do think that at the very least there needs to be more top 8 running from particularly Smiley this season, because it all fell away a little bit last year, which is disappointing, because sort of midpoint of the season at Alton Park where we were there, I think he took a podium in race 1, if memory serves me right, or certainly was running in and around the podium places, and you compare it to where the season ended. And also added to that, on the other side of the garage, Dan Lloyd was starting to really extract the best out of the car took a race win. Yep, I knew you were going to mention that. So yeah, it's a good year. I think it's a big year for Restart, and I think it's a big year for, look, I mean, the grid is small. We won't have that debate here, but in terms,
what I would say, although the grid is small, it is a good quality of driver this year.
It is a good quality of driver. I agree with you on that. But what I was going to say is that if this model can work, we may potentially see a wider grid in the future if we can get more independent teams taking customer cars. Because this really is sort of the first time I can remember, really, since Team Parker Racing had BMW shells, or maybe I think Boardley ran an old BMW at one point, but I can't remember, and it probably shows my lack of ability more than anything else, when we had a car that was still currently being run by a top team, or by a constructor, being run also by an independent who'd bought the car for it. It might have been Jelly's 1 Series, but I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, let us know down in the comments if you do know when that last was. And thank you to the previous comment on another video of when number 1 was last not run in a season, despite there being a champion on the grid.
Which was Gordon Shedden in 2017. I think I read the comment properly. There you go. Right, so we'll go on to the actual format for the day then. So this year there is reason more than just being an uber nerd to watch the Saturday stuff. So the qualifying session takes place between 2 and 25 to 3. So it's a 35-minute session. It should be technology on YouTube, and I believe ITVX, but I'm certainly on YouTube as I understand it. Then there is literally no real gap. So that qualifying will finish at 25 to 3. the sprint race will then begin at 3:05. But bearing in mind they'll have to be on the grid and all that kind of stuff. I think there'll be roughly about a 15-minute window for repairs and stuff like that. It is worth pointing out that they cannot make setup tweaks. They are in parc fermé conditions. So if they make a setup tweak, they are then disqualified from the session and will be starting Sunday from the back.
If for whatever reason they do suffer any sort of damage in qualifying and they're able to replace that before the race starts, that has to be a standard part, basically,
a
like-for-like replacement.
Yeah. So a good example would be
although it is a short amount of time.
It is. A good example would be a puncture, or a tyre blowout, or even just damage to the wheel.
Yep.
They could buckle an alloy going around a corner. They can take that off and put a new wheel tyre on. There's no problem with that. That's not a setup issue. No. What they can't do when they put that on is raise the ride height a couple of notches, because that would then be breaching parc fermé. How they're going to police that, I have absolutely no idea, because...
Well, I think the time limit that they have between, if a car does suffer damage, you're always going to have a TOCA official there going, okay, what's the part that you're going to be putting on, and checking that.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll see too many instances of it. If someone's going to go off in qualifying, it's going to be very unlikely that they'll probably actually make the start for the qualifying race or the sprint race.
Although, and I agree with you, but if the TOCA engineers are down there watching the part being replaced, there's no at the other end where you just tweak the rear spoiler a couple of notches. That's what I'm saying. Is I don't know how they're necessarily going to police that, but that is how we understand the rules would be. Yep. The sprint race will be starting at 3:05. A reminder that sprint race will set the grid for Sunday's action, and we will see how it goes before commenting further.
Yeah, and there are points given for that sprint race on Saturday as well. So we'll see how that develops and pans out through the season. Towards the end of the season, it could be quite crucial and critical as to the points that are scored in that race as to where the championship will end up.
Agreed. Then on Sunday, the dates and times you need to be aware of. Race 1 is at 11:30, and that would be 18 laps. Race 2 is at 14:40, and that is also 18 laps. And race 3 is at 5:30, which is also 18 laps. So, and if you are going to the circuit like we are, and you want to get your autographs, etc., the autograph session is scheduled, and all times are due to change.
Yes.
Between 1:15 and 2. So you have about a 25-minute window. A 35-minute window. No, 25-minute window. 20-minute window. 25. Maths. A 25-minute window to try and get your drivers' autographs, etc. If you're going as a group, I would recommend splitting up to go to different tables, because it gets busy.
Yeah, it does. So just to catch you up on the weather we're possibly expecting for this weekend. Now, we are recording this on Wednesday. It is all subject to change because the British weather is the British weather and it does what it likes.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, on Saturday, around about 2:00, we do have a small percentage chance of rain.
Which means it's going to be 45 degrees.
All the way through till about 5:00, where there's about a 30% chance that we could see a sprinkling and a shower. This would make it very interesting for the qualifying and the sprint race.
It would indeed.
Aim to watch. And then on Sunday is looking a lot clearer. We're expecting sunny spells with clouds, around about 13 degrees, and dry all day.
And now for the news where you are.
So yeah, we'll see how that pans out. Obviously, Donington had a huge rain shower last year, which completely shook everything up. But we might not get to see that this year.
Right, shall we crack on with some predictions, then closing thoughts? So if you are new, each week we will do predictions. These include overall race winners, etc., and then some general predictions too. We'll start with the specific race predictions. So pole, and this means the qualifying pole, not the sprint winner, the qualifying pole. I've gone for Sutton.
I've gone for Tom Ingram.
Yep, I mean, fair enough.
The thing is, with
two sides of the same coin and all that. Yep.
At the start of the year, yes, there's going to be a little boost mechanism that they have. They're all going to be completely equal at the start of the year, so I think you're going to see the quality shine out, and it could be either one of those two. Completely
agree. For the sprint race win,
Ingram.
Sutton. I think that this will be quite a processional race whilst drivers get used to how it's all going to work. I think that, in all fairness, and I think you probably got the vibe that I'm not overly keen on this, but I think it will probably improve as the season goes on. I think that this will be quite a drab one, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But I do think it'll be lights to flag.
Then we've got the 3 races on Sunday.
Yeah, now, these can be in any order. So just because we say the first winner, that doesn't mean it has to attach itself to race 1, because we tried that for a couple of seasons and it was basically impossible.
Yeah. Anything can happen in the Btcc, which is why we spread our predictions wide.
Indeed, yes.
So I've gone for Ingram to win a race on Sunday,
As have I.
along with Camish and also Josh Cook.
So that's interesting because we've gone for the same 3 cars, just slightly differently round. So I've also gone for Ingram because I think you'd be daft not to whilst you're at this stage of the season.
Yep.
As you say, everyone's got the same boost ratio to begin with.
Yep.
I've then gone for Sutton to win a race. I think he will. I think he'll take to the car, hopefully, quite quickly. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether there will be a little bit of adaptation this weekend from the Napa team as a whole.
And then I've gone for Shedden. I think the Toyota will pick up a race 3 victory personally. I think they'll be solid throughout races 1 and 2 and pick up a race 3 victory. I think Shedden was quite close second to victory in the second race here at the end of last season when they changed the engine. I think he got on the podium, if memory serves me right. So, I think Toyota would go pretty well here.
Then we also go for our Jack Sears winner, and this is across the weekend. So the highest point scoring Jack Sears driver across all 4 races now. Yeah.
And the reason we do this and we don't do the independent one is that the Jack Sears is a trophy that around rookies, and I think it gets overlooked quite a lot until the end of the season when suddenly you care because there's a trophy on the line. But actually, the whole point for these rookies are often in their first or their first few years in the sport is that the most exposure they can get really does help them stay in the touring cars. Yep. And it's sponsors and etc. will be looking at their performances in the Jack Sears because that's where you're up against other rookies, and if you want to get a deal over the line, they are the best people to be beaten. So that's why we go for the Jack Sears. And I've gone for James Dorlin. I think he will win this weekend in the Hyundai.
I've gone for Patterson this weekend just because of how quick the Audi has looked in testing.
Yeah, I can understand that.
It's going to be close. There are 5 drivers in the Jack Sears this year.
Agreed.
As you may or may not have seen from our season preview. And I think the wins are going to get scattered around a little bit.
Yep, I completely agree with you. I think predictions on the first round of the season are the hardest to do because we do not know. We are blind. We do not know anything about the cars apart from what we've seen in testing. And
we may as well pick balls out of a hat and go, that's the prediction I've gone for, is it?
Sealed ones or ones we can see? Yeah, okay. Yeah, Ballgate. Right, we'll then move on to our general predictions. Now, we have ditched the general one this year because we have basically run out of ideas. If you want to see a return of a general prediction for each round, we need you to put it in the comments on YouTube or on our Facebook pages because basically after 7 seasons, we've pretty much exhausted anything we can think of. But we're open up to you and your collective brain. So if you want to see that come back, make sure you comment.
Yeah, we'll also mention it in the review as well for the next coming weekend of touring car racing. So do let us know. But the opening 3 general predictions, I have gone for the Toms. So this is Ingram and Chilton to outscore WSR this weekend.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So 2 cars versus 2 cars. BMW versus Hyundai. I think that might be a closer matchup than some might expect.
Okay. Going against everything I said in the previous one because I like to keep the as you say you've got to spread your eggs a little bit. You've got to do it. You've got to go for it. I've gone for the sprint race winner doesn't win a race on Sunday.
Oh, okay.
So whoever wins the sprint race on Saturday to set the grid for race 1 will not pick up a win on the Sunday.
Okay, fair enough. My second one is I'm going to go for an Audi to have a top 6 finish this weekend.
That is bold. That'd be amazing if it happens. But that is bold.
I'm kind of hoping for a good shuffle up on race 3.
Yeah.
And we could get one of those Audis just pop into there.
I'm already seeing your face as going down the Craner curves. That's 2 off. And then one's running his 7th and gets a puncture going up to McLean's on the last lap or something. Yeah. Okay.
Track rodding brakes like what happened to Dan Lloyd in the Cupra.
Yeah. I've gone for there'll be 3 different independent winners across the 3 races. I really think that's going to be an exciting championship this year. There are some real quality drivers in that pool, and I think that we'll see 3 different winners across the weekend.
And then this is probably my boldest one, actually. Neither Sutton or Ingram will lead the championship at the end of the weekend.
That is bold.
Yeah.
That's double diamond extra bold.
I know, it is.
Wow. Your clothes are coming out extra white with that. Peter Crouch will be on the phone in a minute. Wow. Okay. That is bold.
Yeah?
Yep. Fair enough.
We'll see how it turns out.
I've doubled down on my Shedden to win a race by having Toyota on the podium. So if he doesn't win a race, there will be a Toyota on the outright podium. Okay. No independence one here. There will be a Toyota finishing in the top 3 outright across the weekend.
Cool.
That does not include the sprint. I'll add to that. I'll make it even clearer. That only includes just the Sunday races. Yeah. And include, actually, going back to the independent winners, that's just for the Sunday. So if an independent takes the sprint win on Saturday, that does not count towards my prediction. I'm purely basing that on the Sunday.
Okay.
Happy.
Lovely.
I'm going to really regret that now. When
I can't wait for that to happen.
Yeah. I'm going to regret it, but we have to be clear because we are both competitive, and any loophole that can be found will be found.
So what we do try to do throughout the season is we try not to double up our predictions.
Absolutely.
We try and just use that prediction once each throughout the season. So we do try and keep them varied and shaken up.
Only on the generals, though, we can't have different race winners throughout the season. But yes, on those ones, we will always try and keep them fresh.
And please do let us know down in the comments what your predictions are for the season. It'll create a great amount of humour, laughter, discussion in the comments down below. If you can let us know who you think are going to take race wins across the weekend, what other general predictions you may come up with, we'd love to hear them.
Cool. So I think that pretty much sums up the Donington preview. Just a reminder that we are going. We have got stickers. We do say hello. We chatted to a fair few people on media day. So if you want to come up and have a conversation, by all means do so.
Make sure that you do take something that will protect you this weekend, because it's bound to be windy at Donington. So
I thought it was going to be like a suit of armour or something. The way it was protect you.
So yeah, when you're going to a race weekend, do make sure you've got plenty of supplies and bits and pieces with you. Drink plenty as well, because you will always come back from the weekend dehydrated or windburnt or something.
I love that you're giving PSAs, given the fact that you never take any of this advice, and you always go home to be burned. And
I'm always looking out for everyone else.
And the little child always points out that you look very red and laughs at you, which is great news for me.
But yeah, we'll bring you hopefully updates throughout the weekend if we can, and we'll bring you a review, although somewhat possibly shortened review, for this opening weekend, and we'll be back to some sort of normality next time out at Brands.
I've got small leave to use up at work. Maybe I'll go away. Right, until then, enjoy the weekend if you're going, enjoy the weekend if you're staying at home watching on the sofa. We've got a great weekend coming up, lots of touring car action, lots of good support packages, including the legends. So yeah, enjoy it. The 2026 season is a go. Let's have it.